Destroy it. No, contact!
Hold the line.
5, 2, 3, 9. Yep, direct take, keep firing.
And we're live. Welcome guys to No Man's Land again. It's been a while. As usual, no reason to keep you guessing. I'm joined by Dark Leftovers, our resident orc arty boy.
Oi, hello. It's good to be back by popular demand.
Right next to him, the one, the only, the most essential, Avatus.
Welcome, brothers, to the age of the silver hand.
And also our permanent guest here for a while, and hopefully for a long, long time to go, Kazanski.
Hello, hello.
Right.
Whoa. Not permanent guest. He's a special guest star, okay? Let's get that straight.
Okay. Settle down. Well, there's a lot to talk about, but I was thinking in the intro, maybe we can talk about the war, just like a tiny fraction, because of all of the.
Yeah. Don't really know where to begin with this war, to tell you the truth.
You remember that cool first day when we all showed up and there were a whole lot more neutral towns? That was interesting.
Yeah, that was crazy. Like we were in really good standing at the start of the war, but something that I've noticed over the past sort of couple of years, in fact, since Persistent War started, like what tends to happen is like whoever takes the most neutral towns first always tends to be on the back foot towards the mid game. You know what I mean? Like if we take the neutral towns, then we always seem to be on the back step in the mid game, and the same way with the colonials. And it happened like that, and they beat us back. They took abandoned war. They pushed us right back, but they never quite got to our true backline regions. And I think that is what probably saved us. But the elephant in the room is obviously the silver hand, isn't it? I mean, it's.
Yeah, we'll be getting to it.
Yeah, we'll be talking in detail about the silver hand. Don't worry about that. But I mean, the silver hand and its introduction and when it was introduced is, it needs to be said that is one of the big reasons why the war turned around.
I think though, before we get there, I do want to talk a little bit about kind of the effect on the early war that having more neutral towns offers, though, because I remember and have remembered for a while that a lot of frustration with us on, well, what are we supposed to do on day one ups? You can't go deadlands because we won't fit, and everything's tier 3. How are you supposed to even begin to enjoy the game on day one with rifles? And offering more neutral town opportunities makes day one more interesting. And I think that, my big criticism is that they didn't let us know about that. Like we just had this war pop up, like, oh, look at that. Things are white that have never been white before. That's interesting. I think it threw the colonials off even more than it threw us off. But it made for a really interesting first day war white, and that was fun for me. I enjoyed that first operation quite a bit.
Hopefully they keep that going, because that, just like you said, like it was something new and interesting, and also it's like, oh, this is a lot better than giving us a lot more stuff right off the start. At least here we have an option to at least start doing things a lot more.
With some irony, we still rifled down a tier 3 town hall on day one.
Well, that's never going to stop. That's never going to stop.
Yeah,
I forgot about that.
The one thing I always agree, especially with Kazan, is the contradictory matter of especially what Mark is saying most of the time regarding the strategic level of the game and how he wants the players, to really get into it, but you don't get to even plan around the map you're gonna be fighting on. I always felt like this wish of getting the players involved in the strategic aspect and then cutting their intel off when you start a war makes no sense from any angle you look at it, because even if they would we discussed this in here, right? Introducing this sort of phase of pre-war where people just get ready and maybe scout or some shit, that would be really cool, right? in my
Yeah.
opinion. But this thing where you like boom, you just get para dropped in there 2 minutes before, and it's like this is your map. It's like think fast. Where do you go? Where are you gonna attack? What's
At
your next
least,
move?
at least warm us up a little bit. Like, oh, by the way, there's some interesting map changes coming. Watch out! You know, anything to kind of keep us on our toes, because like we built a whole battle plan for our first op based on it's always the same way that we got a pretty good idea of what to expect going in. It's like, well, scrap that. We got to add a couple steps in here and let's go. It's just we're gonna do this one on the fly, and it's kind of hard to do when you're doing like that op. That first day op was 60, 70 guys, and so that was not easy to turn around on a dime.
I feel like am I good?
Yeah.
Sorry, I feel like my shit took a dump on me.
There you
Anyways, are you guys talking about more like a ceasefire period where you could just have access to backlines and just plan out
Yeah,
accordingly?
I know that. I know we were discussing with Avitus at some point some sort of prep phase. You know, where like even in real war, like you know, there are people escalating tensions, right? Moving stuff to the borders, putting some defenses up. Not, you know, it doesn't have to be like days per se. Even if it's a few
Like just one
hours.
day before war starts.
Yeah, again, like I don't know, it can be even 2 hours or three, so people can start digging in a bit, you know, forming a few defense lines. Maybe logic can get some shit done, so you don't have to. Because what happens right now, and let's not.
Make it so you maybe can't like pull weapons or something like that for the first couple of hours.
Yeah, so yeah, well, you can like even maybe do that, but the
I mean,
general
that would
idea.
be hard to work that around, but yeah.
What really like sucks from my stand of view, and I don't want to go around the finger about it, is we all do it, right? The basically the start of the war is people running around with trucks pulling shit from locations people don't normally spawn in.
Mm-hmm.
And that thing is such a
Yeah.
waste, isn't it? Right? Because instead of that, you could have the players allocate those resources where they are needed, right? Is what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
true. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. They need to put a system like that in, really. Now that I think about it, because if you could like, it's like all those shirts in those backline towns where nobody ever spawns. You know what I mean?
I'll tell you
They all
the,
start with like what 300 shirts or something. At
I'll
the start of the war, those things are fucking essential.
I'll tell you what I think, especially because I know if you would bring this up with Mark or with the dev team, they would be like, well, you know, it requires a lot of coding and a lot of, you know, time spent into changing mechanics. And to that, I would just simply say, simple fucking solution, no coding needed. Make the middle maps, right? The maps right in the middle of the conflict, make them white and don't power them up at the start of the war. Keep them down for like an hour or two so people can, you know, get supplies, get blah, 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 get ready on the borders of it. And then boom, you open the borders, the maps are white in the middle, and whatever happens, happens. You know, the better prepared
Yeah.
faction gets, you know, ground or doesn't.
I could see that what might work in that regard is just not allowing vehicles to cross into the middle maps for the first couple of hours. You know what I mean? Can't let a CV past. So it's just infantry skirmishing in those middle maps for the first even
Yeah,
day of the war. would
like
be good,
a like
you know
a
what I mean?
scout and initial contact. Yeah, I
Yeah,
get
I'm
it.
exactly,
having a hard
yeah.
time seeing this play out in any meaningful way. Like, there's so many. Like, I'm having a hard time seeing it.
So many like options of how things can go weird. Yeah, I guess it's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, for how I would see it, where like the middle maps, that would be the heavy contested regions. Those would be completely like no one can enter there for like, let's just say, the first hour when the war starts.
Yeah,
And
basically.
then hour two starts, then infantry only can be allowed in, and like gradually, you get me, like I see that, like that'd be pretty interesting, you know.
Yeah.
I
think
almost
that'd be pretty
wonder
cool.
what it would look like, because what if we had more territories that were neutral, and what it would do is it would slow down people getting into conflict, I think, which would be a net negative. But like, let's say, just to use an example, let's say Deadlands was all neutral, and you had to get into the map, you had to come in from the map, and you had to build your own initial. You know what I'm saying? Like, but you had more player agency over what you construct and how you approach it.
And
Uh,
back in the past, we actually had this a few times, especially when they were testing stuff out more in the world conquest scenario. We had situations where maps were basically fully white, and I think it was really interesting because, like, again, it took a strategic aspect, right? So what
Thank you for the
direction are you gonna
project,
go?
Official
You know,
Scott.
like, are you gonna go straight down the middle? Are you gonna go on the right flank more? Are you gonna try and cut them off? You know, like it offers so much discussion, especially for clans of and their actions where they want to go and do. it makes it real fun
For
for me.
us, I think it would be better. I think for the average player, it would be frustrating
Maybe
and annoying because again, they just want to get in there and get to that trench grind as fast as possible, and that's going to be severely delayed in that environment.
That's why they
and
made it like that.
not only that, but you need to sort of like think about war start and what that looks like in the starting area. You know what I mean? That the masses of people waiting to get into the game.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And if there's half the region, well, a third of the regions they can't get into, that is going to limit the player spread. It's going to create queues in the backline maps and stuff like that. So it's going to create a lot of problems.
I do believe the happy medium is having at least, one town in each of those contested maps being neutral tier 1 town that both factions fight over, because that makes for some awesome infantry gameplay. Because that's it. Like, you don't have AI defenses to worry about. You don't have anybody with one advantage over the other. It's just one strong arm against the other over a no man's land, no pun intended. That you're trying to fight to win on the first day of war. That's awesome. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing to brainstorm about. I mean, hopefully we'll see something like that into the future. I do agree that the neutral towns at the start of war were a good thing. They should have told people about it though first, because I mean, I think we gained a lot of advantage at the start of the war because we were quickest to adapt over the colonials to the situation. And I think it needs to be something that where people can plan around it, because then at least you're going to get both sides turning up to the same areas and stuff like that, where they've had time to recce how important those areas are.
Nice. Didn't you guys take a T3 city?
Yeah.
We
took Lockheed on day 1, dude.
Then proceeded to go to Suns.
Yeah.
And the relic base in front of it. Yeah, but like Avitus and also Cass said, it had a lot to do with like the colonials just like not knowing where to react first, and the response was weak. So once we got moving and we already had a plan for the region, and then we just adjusted it on the fly. Okay, well then we're going we're going even faster than before, and it's like
Go ahead, Cass.
I was about to say, what was really, really weird about it on that first day is because the colonials didn't react well to it and didn't show up on day 1, it staggered our operation, like the actual combat operations, the operation by a good 30 minutes. Because I don't know if, like, Avitus, you were there. You may remember, Razor, I know you were there. But when we took the neutral town, no colonial showed up.
Yeah,
we just had this perimeter of guys around town because we couldn't really advance because we didn't have any shirts, and like our spawn was so far back. And so we had to literally just play really defensive with like 50 guys just sitting here with a ring around this neutral town, waiting for us CV to come up, rebuild the town, put shirts in it. And then like now all that took like 20, 30 minutes because we were going back to get shirts and stuff and supplies. And so without them showing up, it really kind of, I think, made things a little weird for our guys. Cause like, what do you mean? We're just going to sit here on this stone wall and do nothing.
It also,
that's what needed to happen at the time, wasn't it? So.
Yeah, but it also feel like, in my opinion, it might have also created for the colonials a weird sensation of safety on that map. Like, not seeing any enemies for a long time. And, like that map's like really quiet. Yeah, maybe sure they took the middle town, but they're not really doing anything with it. People are not attacking towards us, so it might be fine.
But you're right. We stabilized off it, got enough supplies in there, and then we just exploded out of that position into a really, really great attack. So
I mean, I will say that like as the war progressed, and not getting too much into the new vehicles or anything like that, but something I noticed that I didn't know at the start of the war, but wasn't Siege a colonial clan, and then it went Warden or something. Because I don't really keep up with this shit. But, like, I see those guys around all the time doing work in fucking armor, you know what I mean, at ridiculous o'clock in the morning. And I think that is probably, I mean, I'm not saying they're the only reason why we won, but, that clan is
another factor.
It was just, they're just one of the ones that show up to fucking, face us head on. They face us head on, you know what I mean? And not many colonial clans do that. You know what I mean? So it's, I mean, without them and without any other clans of note to think about, it's like when we have an operation and we're bringing 4 and 5 of these, new tanks to the table, there's nothing that can come up against us because these crews don't know what the fuck they're doing. And I think that's a big, well, one of the many factors is in why we started winning the war.
Yeah, I think we can like stop at when we get to tanks, I guess, and revisit that because that's a really good point. Let's not dwell too much on the introduction here. Let's
Next
move
slide.
on. Let's move on to the meat and potatoes of the war.
So probably the first real warden conflict we
Oh
had.
dear.
And
That
not
was
saying it
brutal.
was a long scene coming, but this was like unnecessarily stupid.
I mean, I think it was a good lesson for us to learn, though. To tell you the truth, I think it was a good lesson for the faction to learn, because, obviously, in this instance, yeah, we had a bit of conflict, and it set us back a lot, and we lost a lot of ground, and it looked like we were going to lose the war at one point because of it. You know what I mean? But then we've obviously taken it back, and we're more than likely going to win the war now. So this mistake isn't going to cost us the war this time round. But I think in the future, all the leaders of all the clans and all of the leaders of warden groups, and we need to come together as a faction and make sure that this type of shit does not happen again. Because the tech split issue, it seriously, I'm not exaggerating, it can lose you fucking wars, guys. You know what I mean? And it's not a matter of just like, throwing in your. So we need to have some kind of like, definite plan for our tech across the entire faction. I mean, we've got the Warden Unity Hub now, so I mean, hopefully that'll help things along the way. But
I got a lot to say on this, but I'll kind of defer to you guys. I've already talked a little bit.
Well, I personally just think that in general the idea of leaving it so open for like this game and democracy at this level doesn't really fit
Doesn't
well.
work.
Yeah, it doesn't
yeah,
really.
no,
Because the issue is if there would be no actual punishment for what you were voting for or the end result, then it would be fine. Like if you'd be like, well, it doesn't really matter if you take the other thing because in the end you're not going to get penalized for it. Then you'd be, yeah, like do all the votes you want. There's no issue there. But it really feels like, like you guys said, like you said, Aptus, like a bad tick or a bad split can mean disaster real fast. And I think the last war colonials did a lot of splitting and it really affected them, right?
I think what were they tied on? I'm trying to remember, but I can't pin the nail on
They
that.
had a few things, especially on the siege tank. I know they sort of split that up a tiny bit with whatever they had on dot line. Well, I think nothing as bad as the
I
famous
think what would
APC
fix the issue.
fan.
I think what would probably fix the issue is if you had some kind of voting system before you tech that thing. So, for instance, the next thing you're going to tech would be voted for while you're teching the current thing. Do you know what I mean? So on line one, it would be maybe voted for in the first 10 minutes of the war, and then you'd start teching that particular thing on that line. And while that is being teched, there's another vote going on that lasts until that thing is teched for the next line. Do you get what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
regardless of what gets picked, everybody's putting their tech into the same thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's exactly the line where even if it was like a dumped down vote either that or that and whatever wins you get, it's still better than actively like making it a competition sort of like even if it's not a direct competition, you're gonna have people compete for it, and then it starts just like going into really bad situations like we had this war, like people camping tank centers to get the tech. Other people would leave around, just like sign spams, like world chat being
Propaganda.
a fucking swamp. It's
I think
like
the devs have too much faith in people to make reasonable decisions. You know what I mean? Like it's not like, and I'm not just saying other
Thank you
people.
for the follow, you
I'm talking about us
non-essential
as well.
Scott.
You know what I mean? I think that needs to be taken out of the player's control. You know what I mean? Well, in regards to just taking whatever the fuck you want. You know what I mean? because it will
Thank you for the
literally leave
follow,
the
you
factions wars
non-essential scum.
if it's not handled properly.
I
Yeah,
think
we-
if
I
they
think-
really good.
No, you can go. You go.
I think they really want to have player agency in the process, which is again not bad in and of itself, but the way it's currently, as you guys said, the way it's currently designed, literally sets people up for conflict, like in an almost unavoidable format, and that's in spite of the tremendous amount of work that people have done to try to come together in advance of these decisions and get consensus. Because without getting into the details, there is a lot of work done on the Warden side to try to get as many people at the table as possible to try to find consensus, because the consequences of not finding consensus are so horrifying, and we still
this
fail.
type of thing drives that sort of need to be more organized. You know what I mean?
Right.
It drives organizations like ours, because like this type of, just adding that simple voting system that I just talked about there would completely alleviate all the need for anything to be controlled or anything like that and organized. But the problem is that I think overall the Warden faction is a lot better at being, or it's got organizations in it that are better at being organized overall. I think in tech, I think as time goes on, you're probably going to find that the Colonial is going to be a lot worse at it than we are, because at something that we're very good at is rising to meet a challenge. So like we can become unified on this tech issue. I think we'll probably won't have many issues with it into the future. I hope not. But I think the Colonials are going to find it extremely hard, because they don't have huge clans, you know what I mean, that are unifying the faction and stuff like that.
Realistically, if you want a solution on this, you're going to have to remove some of the consequences and impact of the division. And I think that, as you said, what you're suggesting is one thing. I think to simplify it, even within the context of the current system, is leave it the way it is. Leave it with the prototypes. Leave it all. But anything that you submit for any of the votes moves toward 100%, if you will. And so at the end of the day, once you get 100% of a certain tech level, and it may be divided 60, 30, 10, then it goes to the tech that's got 100%. That way you eliminate the tech waste, if you will.
Yeah.
You can still have division and conflict over, what was best to tech, and you may have blame flying around, but at least the whole faction won't be punished because of that one decision point as much as they're getting punished.
Kind of like tickets, right? Like you only get 100 tickets.
Yeah.
How you spend them is
exactly.
Exactly.
And that way you can also take advantage of both techs, right? You can prototype things from both sides to some extent, still dabble in that piece of tech and still use some of it. And but still it's fine. And you're not going to, the whole faction is not going to have consequences forever. I do want to kind of point out something that Zach's putting in No Man's Land. I agree with Zach 100%. This system is awful in regards to how laborious it is for the players to participate in it. Because you literally just build in a mechanic to send people to the scraps fields exclusively to try to push this. And that's an awful way to get player engagement. Like, it just, I could rant forever on it. It's retarded to me.
Yeah, we already had our opening suspicions with them, like when they introduced the new like iron and aluminum fucking like nodes within the scrap nodes, and I was like, we already had the people aren't gonna like it, and then top that with, well, guess what? You have to get like at least 1,000 later to just submit to one thing.
Guys, I hit a scrap field this war, and it didn't feel good. I haven't hit a scrap field in a long time. It's terrible, dude. It's terrible.
The fact that some people just basically took sweatshop jobs on like getting the tech to advance is horrible. I don't know, like Cass said, I generally don't mind, because the byproduct of this was a shit ton of BMATs for everybody. But at the same time, like, it just felt wrong. It felt wrong to have, especially this war sort of, we chilled out because it's the second war, so people are getting more in tune. But the first war, right, the update war, literally, we would come home for work and fucking strap into the scrapper, part-time duty. Everybody, like having over fucking, like 20 people in each channel. And like 3 channels, everybody scrap. We need that tech, and that's a bit silly for a game like this, where
the first air horn ends, and then the second one.
Yeah,
begins.
like we sort of went into Eve boundary there, where we turned into a mining corporation all of a sudden during the weekdays.
Yeah,
sure, in the weekend we'd go buy to like fighting and stuff. But weekdays it was like, okay, boys, get ready to scrap your minds off. We don't really
Okay,
want the scrap, but we need to.
so just briefly going back to the thing about tech. If fuck, I forgot what I was going to say now. But
It's okay, Grandpa.
Yeah, don't worry
it will
about it.
come back to me.
You'll get there. In the meantime, like I noticed Lissig was saying as well, that conflict is part of the game, and yeah, it is part of the game, but it needs to like the debate phase of the pick should have a period of time, right? If nothing else, like it should be from this point to that point. After that point, the debate phase, finishes and the tech phase begins or some shit, right? Like separate the conflict from the actual process of teching, because having conflict while also teching is a nightmare from what I saw.
Now I remember.
Go ahead.
Yes. So I think it needs to be said as well that the fact that a lot of these new things are very new. Like a lot of these things are getting teched for the very first time. You know what I mean? Like, like different vehicles and stuff like that. We didn't know how they played until we got our hands on them in an actual war and things like that. So I think as time goes on, I think it will naturally become something that we just know what to tech. You know what I mean? Where we know what are the things that need to be teched, what's good in certain situations, or what's good to get into the field early rather than later, and what's best to leave till later on, sort of thing. So I think as time goes on, and the faction sort of learns what are the best vehicles to tech, then I think you'll find less conflict naturally.
I don't necessarily agree with you, because the conflict this war started from the premises that the devs did a buff up for the fat
GT.
guns. So that was like, that was the game changer here. Like, oh guys, they changed it. They made it way better. We would be
Got the
fucking
armor of
stupid to not
tanks.
pick it up. And then, I don't know. I know it's still very debated. In my opinion, especially because how much colonials are complained about tanks, and I saw no fat trying to to contest any tanks. I've been in a tank for like more than 8 hours in the past 2 days, and I didn't see one fat from the colonials, not even one. So I don't know what to tell you. Maybe they just didn't like use them properly, or didn't have the morale to use it at
I
this
think the
point.
thing, I think the thing with those is they're they're good in my opinion. They're good, yeah, but only they're very very situational. In the situations where they're good, they're fucking excellent. But like as an overall thing, I wouldn't have teched it earlier on. I think it was the right move to go for what we went for. Wasn't it the Highlander that we
No,
went
it's
for?
APC.
AP, that's the one. APC. Yeah, I think it was the right move to do that because I mean the APC is the most versatile vehicle in the game, really, isn't it? Water, land can be used as whatever. So I think you go for aim of the game early on, and pretty much anything is you go for utility rather than just what focusing in on one area, just on AT rather than all of the things that the APC could have done. So I think.
I think what made the thing at least somewhat scary is that people were it kind of felt like they're outright too lazy to just make the emplacement version, which is all rounds cheaper and you pretty much
And
use the same
stronger,
tools. Yeah,
way stronger.
compared to the the mobile versions, it's pretty much you got all of its weaknesses are reversed in a way. You get me? Like you can't get shot out of it if someone shoots you in the front. You get because I know with the current one right now, you can just with the light tank, you can just fire the top and then it kills most
Yeah.
of the crew.
From what I understand, that's the main issue why Colonials didn't use it, because they tried initially, and then all of the Silverhands would just use their normal tank turret to just decrew them in one shot, and it made it pointless. Like, what good are those guns if they're gonna get decrewed from first shot? Then yeah, I don't know what to tell you more than this. It felt like a huge bluff for them. Even like Highlanders, I didn't necessarily see a Highlander suffering that much from the colonial FATs either. At least from what I played. I'm sure like
I'm pretty
everybody.
sure some people got sniped from that, but
No,
I get
yeah.
exactly what you mean, but like I think like the opening volley of, because everyone knew in the Warden faction at that time that Colonials are spamming tankettes, and people were scared that that they're pretty fucking good. But as there was like a brief little like window of like everyone being like, oh yeah, we should have checked the FATs because look at that, tankettes are storming, and given in their own right, the tankettes were actually like the Colonials had a good advantage when the tankettes were out. It wasn't only until we got the Highlander that it was like, yeah, the tankettes are actually fucking nothing.
I mean, the tank heads overall are especially powerful, but the problem is the counter list is huge. From decrewing to just like Highlanders just being able to outmaneuver it completely and just go behind it and decrew it. Like, because like front in front, the tank head wins against anything we can throw at it. You know, like without utilizing flanking or special shit.
Thank you for the follow, you non-essential scum.
What is that? What is it packing, the tanker? What's it got inside
It's
it? Is it
HMG.
a HMG? All right, well, I
Yeah,
didn't know that.
but
It's got that, and it's got. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's got that, and it's got better armor and tracking than an armored car.
Yeah.
It's essentially
Right, okay.
considered a light tank.
Right, okay.
Thank you for the follow, you non-essential scum.
thanks for all the follow, guys. Yeah. Anyway, I think that's basically it. You know, like the tank kit has way
you for the follow,
way
you
more
non-essential
potential
scum.
than people give it credit. But I agree. Like in order to use it properly, you need one thing that the colonials don't necessarily put accent on. You need like extremely well organized people to cover its flanks and blah blah blah. You know,
Yeah.
colonials don't seem to roll like that. They generally just roll as, you know, a living organism that just breathes and goes in all directions. And
Yeah.
so I think that's pretty hard for them. I think my personal opinion overall, I think is it's a problem from the developers. I've said it in the past. I don't know if I said it here. I think the main problem is they're trying to get the factions to fit in their vision, lore, whatever you would call it,
Yeah.
and it's not how it should be. It should be they should be adapting to how the factions play. The factions
Yeah.
shouldn't be adapting on what they want to
Yeah.
do, right?
So
not.
I've thought about this quite a lot, yeah. And ever since this sort of like got said initially, where it was like, oh, the colonials are the more aggressive faction, you know, they're the attackers and the warden are the defenders, and so ever since they said that, I was like, hang on a minute, like I've been playing this game probably 3 years, and I'd say 80% of that time I've been in the attacking, you know, phase of the game, because like most wars, wardens are on the attack because I think we've won most wars, haven't we? So we're mostly on the attack all the time. You know what I mean? Yeah, granted, we have been on the defense sometimes, obviously, but most of the time the warden's been on the attack, and it feels as if the colonials are good. I mean, you just have to take that the war documentary. You know what I mean? Everybody knows that war documentary where the colonials held us off for weeks. You know, in the defensive fashion, and then you know they pushed out and they counterattacked and they took. I would probably swap the roles around, where the wardens are the more aggressive attacking faction and the colonials are the more defensive and then counterattacking faction. In terms of how, like I'd seen broader tactics over the years used by both factions, I would say that, you know, it was probably opposite rather than what we got. And I think that's what is pretty detrimental to how they're trying to play their faction at the moment, because they're not used to, you know, pressing the advantage and just throwing things at like, for instance, the light tank versus the what's it called, the silver hand. You know what I mean? They have to use the speed advantage of the light tank to get by the silver hand to have a hope of beating it. Yeah, but they're not used to that sort of level of tactics. They're used to standard tank engagements where you're facing each other head on a road, you're reversing and things like that, and that's why they're losing them time and time again. And this all ties into the general feel of the factions, in my opinion.
If I could disagree with you just a little bit on some of that. So
yeah, of course.
So, like, I get what you're saying. I think in the broader sense, but I think some of it may be our own prejudice because we're DK and we're always attacking, and so
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying.
possibly. Yeah,
And so I think that kind of works. But I think you're right. I think I've seen as a faction, we tend to be taking more ground than we're losing. And when you look at the whole space of the war, for the reasons you just said, but when we're maybe not around and there aren't other pushes going, Wardens are defending just as much. And from a lore perspective, I know that's going to get some eye rolling, but it does make sense that the Colonials are the aggressors on our homeland. Get that too.
oh, absolutely.
And then the final thought that I'd offer on that is, and I agree, I'd love to see like this alternate universe where we have access to the light tank and they've got access to a silver hand like vehicle. And I think that we'd surprise ourselves because I've seen a lot of points made on this, and they're entirely valid. That using the silver hand strategically and tactically is easier than the ask of using a light tank in
absolutely.
that high maneuverability environment.
150%.
And that's, I mean, so no matter what faction has it, you're at a disadvantage because the coordination and execution required to pull that off is got to be incredible. It's something that we might love to rise to the challenge of, but as a whole, for the average player, they're not able to do that, and so more engagements are lost on average across the whole faction as a result.
I mean, I said this a couple of days ago. I said, like, we've got some strong vehicles that we've been given and things like that, but God help the Colonials if we were given their vehicles, because if 82DK had like the Colonial light tanks en masse, you know what I mean, we could do some fucking damage with that shit. You know what I mean? Where you get you're getting a whole tank formation speeding around the flank. Sick. It would just be insane. It would be insane, dude.
Yeah, I would love to.
You know what I mean? Like the Jeeps with the RPGs on. You know what I mean? Those things would be rampant if we had them. You know what I mean? They'd be all over the fucking place, destroying shit. And it's. I just don't feel as if the Colonials are putting the vehicles that they've been given to the best tactical use.
I do agree with.
I think it's too hard though.
Yeah, I do agree with Kaz. I think you need to think it at an average level and not on like specialized level, like groups that are good with it. Definitely Silverhand is way more easy because you just like sit there and point and click. To the same point, I do want to say that I feel like a lot of people have been discussing a lot, and we're gonna get let's just switch here to the Silverhand. I think it's time to actually go into this because
get into the meat and potatoes.
Exactly. I feel part of everybody's talking about the Silverhands. It's OP. It's like like you can't do anything about them. Wardens are spamming them. No way of and it's like there was this one guy. He came with a sticky. He took the tank on my side by surprise. He stick its backside, right? The tank next to me didn't really notice that, so when he was trying to evade it, he got close to me. So what happened was the sticky on his back splashed me as well. I shit you not, both tanks were down 30% health. I shit you fucking not. So I don't think people actually understand how squishy these tanks are. Like, sure, they look impressive and they're like
they're glass cannons, aren't they? Really?
Yeah, they really are. Like, I think I think they didn't really try to counter them. I think that exactly what like it was described. If it was for a small contingent of light tanks to actually like speed around us and get behind us and just get a few shots on us, I think we would be fucked. Like.
Don't tell me.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true.
Because it's supposed to be I'm assuming that it's supposed to be the predecessor of the storm tank, right? Like it's supposed to be like this is the best
somewhere
version
there.
Of
yeah, probably somewhere there.
Because all of its armor is up on the front, and like the rear is just like that's where you have to just fuck them up. Is you got to get to their ass.
So something that I've been thinking about in the reason why Silverhands have been just wiping out vast quantities of colonial armor. I mean, just ridiculous amounts of tanks. I remember that there was an attack on Saltbrook a couple of days ago where about 20 colonial light tanks, a fucking BT prototype, all of that type of shit. They flattened the town before they came in with a storm cannon, and they just got annihilated. They got annihilated by Silverhands because the standard way of engaging tanks on the front line in Foxhole, and I'm talking about grindy front lines, I'm talking about a couple of sergeants taking a tank to the front line. The standard way that people engage tanks on the front line, Wardens or Colonials, is they sit on the centre road, and they go down the road when the other tanks push forward, and they might shoot a shell into it. And then the commander's like, back up, back up, back up, back up. Every single time, if they know what they're doing, they say, back up, back up. So they shoot a shell, a couple of shells, they exchange on fire. Maybe if an infantry has an RPG, they'll disable the enemy tank, and then they maybe finish it off. And that's how things are exchanged on the front line. How things are differently now, however, is that you're getting colonial armor that is still engaging in the same way. They're still engaging tanks. They're still engaging frontline armor in exactly the same way that they've been doing for years. But they're not realizing the fact that the Silver Hand is literally built for that specific engagement. It's literally that's its specialty. Yeah. That engagement.
Exactly. In front line. That's it.
Front line. Push up. Fire a couple of shells. You might even disable the tank. If you've done that, that tank's dead. You know what I mean?
Yep. Infantry and whatever's left is gonna pick it up like vultures and just don't even need to do it.
That first volley is so punishing because not only do you have one gun being commanded, or 2 guns being commanded by one guy, you do that poke of, oh, I'm gonna shoot one shell. No, you're getting 2 things fired at you, and one gun is a stronger caliber than the other. And it's just, it goes to where they're not playing with their strengths, they're playing against ours, and that's no bueno.
Yep. And I just want to refer back to my previous point. It's just, that's the way average players understand tank combat, and it's so difficult to maneuver, and it's so easy, and it's so much easier as a faction to force those engagements into head-to-head confrontations. It's tough to play the flanking game and play well, especially with armor, I can imagine. I mean, because every single tank you fight up against has binos and is looking for that. It's a more patient, choose your fight kind of gameplay. There's no fog of war with tanks, so to speak. You can see them whether it's dark night through barricades, and so it's really hard on I think the colonial armor and the colonials to do what you guys are talking about. And I think consequently the Silver Hand, in my opinion, appears to be way too overtuned for the role it's good at.
Well,
that's my perspective.
Yeah, and I do agree with you, because this is not about, like you said, this is not about what we can do or what other group can do with it. This is about what a non-experienced, average player can do with it. And, the reality of that is what Kaz is saying. They're going to go to a front line. If they're going to be in a tank, they're going to face off the other tank in front of them and just play that waiting game of, they're pushing in. We're going to, push in to stop them. We're going to back up. We can't back up because, they fired one volley and we're already disabled. Abort.
We talked about this. We talked about this last, but there was and it was not this war, but the last war, when I really realized how good that light tank was. And Dark I had to bring him back to bad memories, but I remember one of these colonial light tanks. We had 2 battle tanks on a front and AT half tracks in reserve, and this colonial light tank sped down the road, sped through our town, zoomed all the way through the back line, sniped our FA, kept going, did a full circle back to his front line, and by the time he was done with that route, and it was a long route, it was like a 150-meter circle that he drove to do that, our battle tanks had turned around once.
Yeah,
they just managed to rotate to face the dead FA, and that guy was already all the way back to his friendly lines. Because he just held W and took advantage of holding W, and that guy was rocking.
I mean, the problem is that Foxhole doesn't promote the type of gameplay that you need to be good in one of those things. It's high risk, high reward with that sort of thing. And when you've spent maybe an hour trying to put that thing together, probably even more than that if you started from scratch, you don't really want to have that high risk, high reward. You just want to play in a tank for a couple of hours. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
have fun.
I think that's contributing to it as well.
And what happens when you blitz out of control into an AT defensive, like a line of AT turrets, by the way, which we talked about last podcast as well, or you run into a landmine because you don't have time to scout. You just got to go, and you've got to react on the dime to what's in front of you. That's a hard play. That's a hard role to play. That's tough.
Definitely, yeah. It's a cool role to play.
It's exciting, dude.
I'd love to. I mean, I'm excited to find myself in the situation where I'm commanding a colonial light tank, and be in a situation like that where I can, make a high risk, high reward maneuver like that. But I think as a main line tank, to be able to, it doesn't fit its role, does it really? doesn't really bring enough to the table to. They've already got vehicles capable of flanking. They've already got vehicles capable of speeding around a flank and taking out an FA. You know what I mean? They don't need another one. You know, they need a tank of the line, really.
So on that note, because like I'm trying to keep this like tradition of putting a bit of a flavor video or something in the stream now and then. I would propose watching some silver hands go rampart on some light tanks. If you guys,
Oh boy, let me recline.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
it's just
part
it's just a short moment. I didn't want to reveal anything big because like I'm definitely gonna do a video on tank combat very soon.
Show us what you got.
I mean, I guess the reason why I've got very little. Oh, I'll stop for the video. But
Okay.
On them. Okay, they are. What? South, there's. Oh, that's a friendly light. Okay.
Misses out, C squad.
They are currently
Never
southwest down the road,
So
90
down
Down the road, you
meters.
got 2 light tanks that you can rip apart.
Directly southwest, 50 meters away.
Here comes the cavalry. Minor foot, minor foot.
Don't shoot it.
We can steal this. We can steal these.
Great fucking shit.
And that's it basically. We have two
That
new
was
light
it.
tanks now.
That was it.
Oh my god! I have an opening question. And like, did you guys kill the gunners and drivers just from the armor piercing rounds?
I think they hopped out. And
No, some
back
hopped
up.
out. Yeah, then gas came in.
Okay.
One of them was actually pretty smart. I don't. It might be in the next video, but I'm just gonna tell you about it. One of them actually stood in the back tank, and what he did was when he figured out there's no way out, he started shooting the other LT. He actually destroyed it. So yeah, that was a nice
good
play.
lad.
Yeah. You did really good there, and we ended up
definitely,
just
like,
capturing one. So
Definitely a smart.
I've seen a lot of people.
kudos to him.
I've seen a lot of people calling for like a nerf to the speed of the silver hand, and I think that showcases a little bit of that. A reason people think that might be necessary. I don't know if that's a good or a bad solution or not, but
I can,
they can close the distance really quick.
That's I won't
fast
lie.
lane.
I think it's pretty fucking. If I was to take any of that, I will say it is a little too fast. Like you just zoomed. Like they had no chance to fucking reverse out of there. Like it was just like watching a cheetah attacking a little limping elephant.
To be fair and give full context, we actually had comms with the squad there over TeamSpeak, and they were engaged with them for a bit there. Tsar did like incredible work there with our very own stolen light tank to just keep them at bay. And I guess they were kind of on a confident, moment there because they pushed Tsar back a bit, but Tsar was fully aware that that free mean silver hands were coming his way down the road. So
I mean, I guess the reason why, what I was trying to say before the video, I have so little mercy when it comes to, or so little, what's it called? Like pity for the colonials in this regard, is because I'm seeing tanking. I've seen numerous videos of massive tank engagements and minor tank engagements, like we've just seen, where they just keep making the same. Like, be fair enough if, like, for instance, after they lose a couple of big tank engagements, they change their tactics a little bit. But you're seeing this type of thing time and time and time again, where they're getting into these massive tank engagements where they know that these things are that's what they specialize in, and they're not changing up their tactics at all. They're not, adapting to the situation, and they're being punished for that. And I think that's the reason why I have so little pity for them. You know what I mean? Because if it was me up against a massive silver hands, I'd change up my tactics. You know what I mean? After I'd seen the numerous videos on FOD about colonial tank divisions just getting left in burning wrecks on fields and shit like that, I would think, hang on a minute, maybe we should change our tactics up here. You know what I mean? Maybe we should do something about how we're engaging these massive silver hand formations and stuff like that.
I think the issue is that the pursuit capability of these silver hands is too good from what I can tell. Like, because that the light tanks they just demolished are the speedy light tanks that didn't. And again, they probably made some errors in the gameplay. I'll grant you that. But those silver hands are quick, man. Those are fast. Those are real fast.
Yeah, I mean, I could concede that they could maybe do with like maybe a 10% speed decrease.
So the thing to keep in mind, the problem also is roads, right? Because like roads actually give decent bonuses to speed. So as long as you keep the silver hands on roads, that bonus really goes nuts.
I could guess so.
The multiplier, and that's sort of the niche thing, right? Because like Avatar said, they're like a very frontline niche tank. So you just like I was looking on Umbro yesterday. We had a little jeep. Just doing hunting people down and having some fun with it. And then like every like 2 minutes or so, you would just see a silver tank just like, casually passing by, like patrolling the roads.
They were everywhere.
Everywhere.
You saw maybe 3 infantry on the entire map. Everybody else was in tanks. It was ridiculous.
Literally,
That's the thing
and
a lot. Because like when you want to think about it, at least realistically, it's like how is a light tank being outspeeded by a medium tank? You know what I mean? It's like you would assume, oh yeah, the light tank will be able to zoom out of there faster than the medium tank could at least get to it. But it's never really been the case for how light tanks work in Foxhole. Like they've always been generally like slow and kind of like I think I would have said that like probably one of the first streams that the light tanks feel more like medium tanks in this game.
yeah, I mean,
I think it's better to if you just reclassify everything now, because like you've got so many different vehicles now that you can reclassify. Before it was impossible to do so because you didn't have enough variants. But for instance, you got things like the Highlander and the Tankette. I'd class them as light tanks now. You know what I mean? And then you got the light tank, the Colonial one, the Warden one, and I would class them as medium. And then you've got like the silver hands and the ballistas, which are like specialized sort of tank destroyers, I would call them. But ballistas obviously for destroying defenses, whatever. And then you've got the battle tanks, and they're like the super heavy tanks sort of thing. So I think it's probably better to just reclassify the vehicles and stop calling light tanks, and just call them medium tanks. And I think that would probably be a better way forward.
Just throwing that out there. Highlanders cannot tank anything.
yeah.
Just throwing that out there. Like I think what was it, Razor? We were using one the other day. We got shot by an AT gun or an AT like infantry. Which one? The rifle one. And what it was like super fucking like one shot.
I know for a fact like an HMG shot me for like I don't know, maybe count to 3. And when I backed up and checked my health, I was like 60 something. I was like, what the fuck? Like I literally like just took half a clip of HMG and like it already was almost ready to get disabled. And the irony with me always and forever is gonna be the fact that it's called armored car, right? Armored. The armored word is in there, yet any sort of bullet that flies towards it just dents it instantly. Like it is just, I don't know. For me, it's really funny and ironic.
It should be immune, in my opinion. It should be immune to small arms. Maybe it should have a weak area on its engine or something.
I can understand HMGs doing damage to it, but not.
Yeah, I mean, a 50 caliber machine gun would shred a Panzer I.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
But not like it fires half a clip and you're already like almost disabled. That's sort of madness.
I don't know if I brought up last time, but they really need to think about the disabling mechanic and possibly either lowering its threshold as a whole or just getting rid of it, because it's still like it's probably one of the limiting factors a lot of armor has to contend with, because once you're disabled, you're done in any. And top that with you're tracked, your turret's down, or if you're really unfortunate, you're leaking fuel, and that's pretty much like you're on a timer for the next 10 seconds before you physically become disabled.
I was shocked.
I would disagree with you there. Like
I know
I would have to disagree with you there, because I think the modular damage system is completely changed armored combat. I think it's fucking brilliant.
No, no. Well, Dark is not saying it's not brilliant, but for me as well, I was shocked to find out that disabling is still in the game after that was introduced. Like, what's the point of that? I don't know. Like, you
Two
already
disable
have,
systems down.
you have track. That's basically the old disable. Because just because you're crawling with like 1 kilometer a second, that's not gonna change anything in the long term. If you're tracked, you're basically disabled more or less. Sure, you can like
Yeah.
maybe crawl a few meters to safety, but that actually makes it better, not worse, in my opinion. Right? It gives you more.
That gives you a chance.
Exactly, and you leave that chance. Like most people, when they get disabled, it's like, oh fuck, okay, close the curtain, we're done, boys. Yeah. When you're like tracked, it's like, okay, we can make it. Like get out and push it, guys, we can do it.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Like maybe taking disabling out
Oh,
would
yeah.
be a good idea.
I
I
would-
mean, they've already got the fuel tank thing. I mean,
Exactly.
that's the disabling in itself, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, but once you get hit in the ass and the fuel goes out, you're basically disabled again.
That's just, to me, just makes it too fucking, like, you just got so many factors punishing you, and then like I think one of the worst ones you can ever have is just getting your turret just fucking offline, and that's like, yeah, at that point you have to get out. That's like the red alarm. Your gun is down. You are no longer effective. It isn't even about trying to destroy or disable the tank. Really, it's more so get the turret offline, and then it's just it's out blind. It can't do anything.
I mean, for all the problems that we have with the system, the Colonials are having them tenfold. So that's why I don't mind it.
I mean, no, of course. I mean, don't get me wrong. The Silverhand will look at anything, and I mean, 2 guns versus 1. It's like, well, you can't disable both guns at the same time before we can disable your main one.
I mean, I don't think you can disable the second gun anyway. You maybe disable the turret, but the other gun, I don't see a way of disabling it. You can't really shoot it to begin with. So you can't. Oh, okay. So Orbital is telling me you can disable both. Okay, well, that's good to know, I guess. But yeah, in the same time, like, good luck disabling both and tracking it and dealing with the entire pack, because I think this is another very important aspect to consider. Is I don't think I really saw solo Silverhands engaging enemy tanks. Like, instinctively, people just pack them, what I mean? Which I think is part of the problem. Because like one Silverhand against a few, like against like 2 LTs or some shit like that, I see a lot of potential for the Silverhand to lose it. If the LTs get a bit of boldness in their moves, right? But when there's like 3 or 4 of them, which is the case most of the time in the engagements, then like they don't have enough shit to throw at them to make them
I mean,
back up.
I would say that's probably a good thing from our faction though, because I've lost count of the amount of times where you're driving by and a couple of sergeants are taking out a Silverhand, let's say, but then you've got somebody nearby saying, "Guys, you know what you're doing with that? Do you want a bit of help with it or something like that?" And I think we're starting to see the fruits of that sort of like helpful attitude from our faction, because now you're getting people realizing that riding around this particular tank on its own is not as effective if you just follow that guy around with it and go as 2. You know what I mean? So I think that's a general evolution of people just working together. You know what I mean?
I
And,
wanna add this real quick, because Orbital is actually telling us basically if they disable the top turret on the Silverhand, both guns get disabled. I get that makes sense. Oddly enough,
Yeah.
I didn't really see it getting disabled that often, but I get it's mostly of a random mechanic sort of a thing, because I saw a lot of like one bullet disabled the turret, or like one shot disabled the track instantly. So which is pretty silly most of the time in the way it looks like. But yeah, makes sense.
So, closing remarks on the Silverhand. Let's go with you, Avidus. Closing remarks.
I have been very entertained by the tank, and I will look forward to commanding one in the future. I do think it does need a speed nerf. I will concede that. However, I do think that most of the complaints about the tank are due to people basically not adapting to new tactics in order to deal with it, rather than the tank itself.
All right, so that's pretty good. I can respect that. Kaz, what about you?
Pretty close to Avidus. I do think that the current meta makes it really hard for the Colonials to take advantage of the counters that do exist because of we haven't talked about this, and I don't want to open up a whole new subject, but because of the bunker hopping meta as well, you kind of have you don't have the space to maneuver to get an advantage on the silver hand, assuming that the speed wasn't an issue. And I think it is. I think that all the factors together in the way that Foxhole fights go, you're not taking two light tanks against two silver hands. You're taking two light tanks against two silver hands against a horde of infantry, and you're leaving your infantry behind to expose yourself to their infantry to try to make that fly. It's an impossible ask. I think it doesn't fit in the game right now.
Razor.
Well, I think that a slight nerf, especially on the speed, so it gets more in line with the idea of a frontline tank, wouldn't hurt anybody, and it would put a bit more balance, and Colonials would be not that bothered by it, making it slower. I am afraid though, because like generally the devs don't really know how to stay in the middle. Like they either nerf something to the ground or they make it incredible. So I'm really afraid to not seeing the silver hand in the future. Similar to how you guys remember the storm tanks when they got nerfed to the ground, were off road, they were basically CVs. I'm really afraid. I'm afraid we might be going towards that solution from the devs, which is gonna just be sad because if they're gonna do that, probably nobody's gonna use them ever again until that changes, and that would make me really really sad because no matter what, it's a really fun tank to play with. Fuck it, I'll even we can switch, like you guys said, we can give it to the Colonials and they can give us the light tanks for a while. I'll be cool with that.
I will say one thing. Never before in the history of Foxhole has a vehicle been released with such a debut as the Silver Hand. And this war will forever be known as the war in which the Silver Hand was introduced.
You did mention something that's kind of been like when we first were looking at modular vehicles, the first thing I said is that modular vehicles and faction specific vehicles is a neat idea in the hands of a team that's really experienced and really good at doing game balance. And I don't know that this development team is quite there yet. I think that that's causing some problems and is going to continue to cause problems because this is a hard scale to balance. When you really think about it, it's almost impossible. And like you look at the countless games that struggle with balance issues with huge development teams and huge teams of experience to do so, I'm very, very concerned about.
Yeah, I mean, and the go at it, when they're a good few years into the project already, you know what I mean, and they're completely changing their attitude towards balance and stuff like that, it is a bit worrying. I have to agree with you there, dude.
So generally, at least from what I found from RTS games, when they do asymmetric balance, is they generally, if they get one side a very good vehicle, then the other side will have something, not equal part, but something that they can, hopefully that faction considers is a also very good vehicle. So they could possibly get another medium tank that can not do the same thing as a Silverhand does, but probably has like a better or stronger gun, something of the sort.
Give it a
Something
crap
to
ton of
just
armor.
compete.
Just something to take shots for. I think as Avid said, they need a tank of the line, something that can hold ground.
Well, with that, do we have another topic, Razor? I think we've talked a hefty amount on the silver thing.
Yeah, it's time for get the drum roll ready. The dev stream.
There we go.
So, atmospheric music already, not music, but sound effects already started for this one. So they introduced some sneak previews to what's to come here. I know already the dev branch is already up. So if you guys are looking really forward to it, you already can jump in the dev branch and give it a go. But let's not talk around the subject. Let's talk on the subject. This is a bit of a presentation they give us regarding how armor works, because apparently they think people don't really understand a lot of the aspects of it, considering how many complaints they got from people about the new system, and like they tried to explain it in this slide. I know one of the complaints that was demonstrated in this slide was the Colonial light tank, for example. The turret rotates really fast, while the Warden light tank, the turret rotates way slower, visibly slower than it. And of course, it's basically it's made it's designed this way basically just because the light tank for the Colonials is meant to be more agile and lighter and
Well,
faster.
it favors their tactic of maneuverability, because
Yeah.
what that's designed for is you're designed to speed past the enemy tank, fire a shot into its front as you're speeding past it. Then as you're passing it, the turret's already rotating and it's got that rotation speed to be on point for the next shot being loaded and to put one into its arse as you pass it. That's what that's for.
The one thing I'll say on this topic is, and it might sound that, again, I'm pointing at the developers here, but it's just like the way I see it. I feel like if they're really passionate about people understanding how these things work, they shouldn't be so secretive about all of the mechanics that go behind the scenes, because they never actually tell it. Like, yeah, this time they showed us some hitboxes, right? And that's fine and dandy, but we don't know anything more. We don't know the HP. We don't know, like, you know what I'm saying? If you want to get people involved and to understand these things, you need to give them access to the raw data behind it so they can understand, this armor, how is it, like, it's an HP bar. How does it get consumed? How does it get replenished? All of that stuff that we basically have to be guessing or researching on our own. And the thing, I respect this perspective they have, where they want to let player discover this shit. But like, imagine how many people do like have the time to do what Iwan did and just like go full mathematician on it and drive, like, draw graphics of how armor reacts after you shoot 50 shells into it and shit like that. Like, honestly.
Yes, the good old DK R&D project team.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like it's a really bad move to be so secretive about, we're not gonna tell you, but there's like some secret HP bars over there you guys don't need to know about. But at the same time, guys, why are you not picking up on these new mechanics, cool mechanics we put in? But we're not gonna tell you much about them. We're just gonna like keep them secret. It's like, what the fuck?
With that being said as well, like, I wouldn't even, until you telling me right now, I wouldn't even known that the two light tanks have different rotation speeds.
No,
I thought they were still carbon copy the same.
No, they're not. No. And this kind of goes around circle with the silver hand again. Same issue, because the qualities are fought differently, and this is why you see our tanks hitting their tanks, because their tanks are not as, first of all, not as resistant to fire. They're not meant to be.
They hit and run, aren't they? They're meant
Exactly.
to ambush and
Hit
flank
and run.
things like that.
That's it. Yeah, they're not meant to sit there and take punishment from our tanks, which are, at least in this scenario, the one they presented, they're slower, they're bulkier, but they can take more punishment. That's the general idea in this in this presentation they have here.
I think when you get into like later on in the war and stuff like that, and especially when we are on the attack, you've got to put yourself in the situation of the Colonials with light tanks and stuff like that, because their primary tactics should be flanking around and stuff like that. But now you've got fucking concrete bunker bases everywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you've got all of that open area. Most of the time is filled with some form of AT or something that's going to block.
Yeah, I think Kaz addressed it earlier. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's like even with the rotation speed, it's going to be hard for them to contain.
It's hard to navigate when
To
you have so
maneuver.
much shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially with like the input like trees and whatnot, where already that ruins your mobility. You can't even go through a forest because you have to go through very key specific points to even think about maneuvering. So I 100% agree on that. Like, Foxhole is not really a game that encourages well for maneuvering.
Right, going down the line here. this one's for the C boys in the house.
The cult of the hammer.
And it's I'm just sad I didn't I should have put in a screenshot of that one guy that made a bunker base surrounded by bunkers. That was like Logi was already like sweating there. How the fuck are we gonna supply that? Oh my god, we don't want to see that on the field.
It's definitely it's one of those things that they didn't have to really make this, but this shows that at least they somewhat care about the guys that build bunkers, because this is a little, it's not much, but it's something to help, at least with their creativity. That's at least what I'm taking it as.
I think that you're going to see a lot, because they did say numerous times that they want to put a lot of effort into the trench system and the bunker complexes and shit like that. So I think you're going to see a lot more utility stuff coming out, and a lot of cool shit coming out eventually for them. You know what I mean? That's going to really make these bases. The problem is that these bases are fucking awesome, and you really want to get inside them and fight inside the corridors, and and push up to them and fight over the into the structures and the narrow corridors between all these concrete walls and shit like that, because they look like such fun areas to attack. The problem is that as infantry, you can't get anywhere fucking near them, obviously, because they're just peppered with these concrete rifle garrisons that are just impossible to take down. And I appreciate the fact that, and the builders are probably going to curse my name for this, but with the trench system that connects them and stuff like that, and you have to something about them being connected by a tier 1 trench and stuff like that, that's a bug. But it's just leading to these rifle garrisons like we saw in where we were yesterday, Razor. Heartlands. Not Heartlands, where we were riding around the Jeep.
Umbral, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Umbral. Where there was concrete rifle garrisons lining the entire road. You know what I mean? And that is just like an absolute nightmare to clear and take down. And then I think something needs to be done about that. You know what I mean?
Could you imagine, Avidus, if we had the ability to storm and capture bunkers instead of always resorting to blowing them up?
Well, yeah, that'd be fun, wouldn't it? Don't you think that would be fun though?
Yeah, that'd be sick. I don't know how it would work from a balance perspective. I have to think a lot more about it. But thematically, love that. That'd be so cool.
Yeah. It would, because they look like, that's the problem with them, because they look like such fun areas. They look like such fun terrain to fight over. But you get you never really see them unless you're defending them, or you happen to be the one guy that makes it up to the rifle garrison before you die.
And then you need to satchel it. The interaction.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We've only figured out how to blow stuff up, which I'm okay with most of the time. That's fine. But I love how we get this huge town hall, and we could take the flag off, or we could purge it with fire. Oh man, that's good.
We're back 2 minutes, guys.
I think one thing that they could have done, or at least where you could just focus on the I know they want everything tied in, where you destroy one segment, everything gets destroyed too. But this is just me, my 2 cents. It's what if you just focused and you destroyed the just the rifle garrisons or the AT ones, you know what I mean? The bunker structure is still up, but only the AI.
A more progressive destruction is what you're...
So you don't have to worry about that massive HP pool of trying to destroy the whole thing. You can just target that one thing that's stopping you. Get the smokes and the satchels. You only need let's just say 3. I can't really do rough numbers right now. Let's just do 3 for a concrete, rifle garrison. Bam, it's down. It creates a hole where you can actually get in the bunker itself and continue on pushing. And now you can not essentially flip it, but you can at least get inside and use it while still having them up.
Yeah, sort of making progress through the rubber sort of thing.
Yeah, so it's you have your breaching point now of you can actually use these instead of just they're pretty much just flat ground decorations, when they fully get destroyed. And even so for infantry as well, it's the Fancy's been telling me the amount of commitment and resources to just destroy something like this. This is a 9x9. It would take way too much anything for any type of people to actually try to destroy this. And if you don't have HEFA, it's it is a massive slog. There is no. Go, go, go.
Also, no, I just want to mention because I know it's a hot topic and continues to be the repair capabilities. Like we've had, what was it? Like recently, we fired an FA at, I don't remember if it was like a tier 2 bunker or some shit. Anyway, we fired like fucking 40 shells or like even more normal FA shells, didn't scratch the surface. They could out repair us like they wouldn't give a shit. And it's
Yeah,
so fucking like frustrating because like if you calculate, I'm not gonna do it, but like if I ask Logi to calculate the amount of explosive shit it went into, like 3 crates of shells, firing basically at some B mats and maybe some R mats if it was concrete. I don't even remember if it was, and them just like casually I was repairing that field gun as it was nothing. Like I don't know. It doesn't really make sense for me. It's like it should be. I get that. At the same time, if you make it too easy to destroy for the RT gun then becomes OP. Don't get me wrong, but like we discussed multiple times, at least like repair should be controlled in some way when artillery is present, right? There should be a mechanic that says, well, you get suppressed or some shit, you repair slower or some shit because artillery is raining on your head. You can just like start
you can't just hammer away.
exactly, like there has to be a consequence to the fact you're being under fire, right?
It's actually more impactful in the early game. Go ahead, Dirk.
No, it's like I went on the press corps the other day to to word out the word of my arty reform that I was that I wrote about to
Preaching.
Markfoot himself. Seems like he wasn't really interested in that like aspect of it. So I think they did say one thing, that they are looking at the repairing structures situation, because it's always been something on their mind, but they haven't really had the time to really focus on it. But it is something on their mind. At least just give you some hope as far as repairing under fire.
That'll help the
But
colonials a lot, though, I think, because really the repairing while under fire, yeah, it sucks when our FA gets slowed down, but usually we can overpower it with an FA and combined artillery. It's in the mid game when we're trying to do stuff with HMGs, SMGs, HE grenades. That tier of progress is completely and totally hopeless in the face of one dude with a hammer and some
it,
BMX.
Yeah.
it even makes to an extent, it even makes like standard shells absolutely obsolete. There's no point of utilizing FA shells or standard shells against pretty much anything that isn't, like, if it's tier 2 bunker, yeah, maybe you're gonna be using 3 times as more compared to just HEs. But if it's concrete, you can't even hope,
Is that the
because
question?
what?
I said it's completely out of the question at that
Oh
point.
yeah, completely. And it's just I felt a little I was personally a little disappointed. It seems like they would rather take the approach of, we'll make different type of FA guns to do different responsibilities, rather than trying to standardize and make things a little more engaging and simpler for the whole community. But I mean, again, at least I got some form of clarity of this is how they feel, how they want artillery to be, which is fine. Don't get me wrong. It still keeps its skill oriented play, which will be. But it's just, to me, it's one of those things that they could make it as a great platform for something better. But what can you do?
Yeah, it really. I know. I'm just happy that at least they're looking into the repair stuff because like Kaz actually pointed a very important thing I kind of forgot about because I was focusing on the Artigan. Like mid game is cartoonish in this sense where you would like concentrate all your fire on a structure and then there would be like, oh, I have the perfect example of it. Kaz, do you remember when we did that encirclement on Hardline?
Oh, yeah.
And we basically, so I'll explain to people that don't remember or weren't there. Basically, Hardline is a relic base, and we just build a circle
Day one, by the
around
way.
it. Day one, build a circle around it with like trenches and foxholes and shit. Full circle around it, 360 degrees, and we're just like keeping the colonials away from it, so we can destroy it and take it over. So we were basically firing at it with rifles for 20 minutes now while being encircled. It was down to around 20-ish
About
percent.
28%, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. And what happened was the colonials suddenly, figured, why the fuck are we like fighting them with rifles and shit when this is not working? So what they decided to do is dropping everything, grabbing a hammer, 20 BMATs, rushing in, and just hitting the fucking thing as many times as they could before they died. And I shit you not, guys, they got it up to like what 70% or some shit with like a few tries. It was
I mean, a
fucking
couple swings of the hammer undid 100 bags of rifle ammo. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it was incredible, the progress. Now, to their credit, I mean, that situation is a really good example of the problem. But to their credit, the Colonials did rally an impressive rescue of the encirclement to
Oh,
get
yeah.
enough breathing room to do that. And so I don't want to make it seem like
No,
it was
no, no,
that
no.
bad, but yeah, it was still BS.
like full props to them, I'll say it right now, for like rallying up and stopping us. I think that was awesome, even from our point of view, in a way, to see that comeback sort of coming in. It felt like shit, like we can't like deny it. It felt shit to get comeback from there. But the fact that that was possible because literally, like you said, one guy with a hammer could undo a few hundred clips of rifle ammo with a few swings was like just like cartoonish. That's the word I'm going to stand by, cartoonish. So on that note,
And you could use countless examples of safe house rushes and pushes that have gone up in flames where you've just almost brought it across the finish line in that desperate 50, 60 HE commitment, and then you have to respawn, re-equip, and by the time you run back, they've already repaired all that damage. I mean,
Yeah.
that happens on a daily basis.
I when stuff like that happens, I always go back to that Family Guy meme where the Amish just rebuild that barn over and over again. That's basically how it feels every fucking time. Like
I mean, I won't lie. Like, I mean, I think I gave up on the idea of trying to just go for the snipe. It's now well worth its risk of just we've seen it better. Just push the front towards the the spawn base, and that's yields way more better effects than just okay, guys, let's go for that ace snipe, and then it's
oh yeah,
down.
absolutely. And
But what happened?
even like sorry, like I just want to say, even like in context of targeting, like I bet you guys notice we don't target the actual thing we want to take down anymore. We target the shit around it because we know there's a waste of fucking time and effort to actually take or target the actual target we have. There's no point into it because you're never gonna get it. It's that simple. One guy with a hammer is just gonna be like laughing at you while he just like out repairs it from like the last stage to full HP in 40 seconds.
There's really nothing you can really do against that other than like, okay, well, how do you counter that one guy repairing it? Well, let's completely surround it now. We destroyed everything around the town hall. Now let's surround the town hall with all of our guns. So that will hopefully nullify the one guy with a hammer.
And
I
I know
could tell countless stories of the level of commitment made for people to protect that one guy with a hammer, especially like day one wars. I saw like this hilarious situation where they actually had built sandbags around one specific corner of the town hall and had run guys into that one niche that we hadn't quite secured yet to keep hammering. And we had like a 330-degree surround, but that one little spot, this guy just hiding, sandbagged in, making sure he could prepare for the rest of his life.
That's fucking crazy.
yeah, and it's
That
just
was-
silly.
So with that, let's go on to the next one. I don't think Avidus is coming back.
Yeah.
Just maybe-
No,
here.
he's
he's
back.
here.
He's
here.
back.
I'll talk some shit.
We can move to the big reveal of the stream. Oh, that actually the big reveal is next. I forgot about the stairs. My bad. It's pretty funny because like I forgot about them with good reasons. But like even the devs point out, these actually are not an actual thing in reality. They never existed. So I'll start on that note.
Yeah,
It's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
I mean, mainly because the issue is just the trenches are sometimes buggy. You just can't fucking get out. And hopefully
Yeah.
this just makes it easier just for you to.
Also,
I think it's going to be a good utility. I think it's needed. It's going to be interesting.
it's also gonna help a lot with like Cassandros or Iwan when they get really drunk. They're actually gonna be able to get out of the trenches now.
Yeah, true.
They might have to like just do a 4x4, but at least they're gonna be able to get out of there. Not gonna stay stuck
One
in
thing
it.
I would love to see that they would do is if you're able to make it to widen the trench, not making it longer, but like putting them together to it. You get what I'm trying
Yeah,
to say?
but they don't want to allow that because then you can fit vehicles. I feel like
Right.
that's why they're like they don't want you to get the vehicles inside of them is what I'm getting from that in general.
If you get a vehicle inside there, you're not getting it out. Like you're almost 9 out of 10 times gonna get. You're
I
gonna
mean, I think it might be good for them to do somewhere down the line where they've got a lot of the bugs sorted out and clipping and shit like that, where they have a trench where it's just a singular trench where it can't connect to anything, and it's like somewhere you can drive a vehicle in or something like that to become entrenched. That would be pretty fucking cool. Or like push one of the pushable FAs or something like that into like a concrete bunker with a roof on it with a firing port in the front or something.
where you become the actual
An artillery shelter sort of thing for vehicles and that type of thing. Yeah.
Well, I really hope. I feel that's really cool. And in the end, especially for RT guns, I personally, the one thing I really am still hoping for is, and I'm gonna give a pretty niche reference, but whoever played Men of War, especially the multiplayer variety, I know Klaus knows exactly what I'm talking about. The artillery guns can get these like stationary positions where you like put sandbags and shit and cover them up with leaves and shit like that. I feel like that's really fucking cool of an idea, especially for Foxhole. On just getting some entrenched position for your RT gun or even for the FATs. Make the
I think
mobile also
that's the gun that needs it the most. I'd say the FA gun, the pushable FA gun, is the thing that needs that stealth mechanic more than anything.
Even howitzers, like you could cover howitzers with like at least some fucking camo, right? Wouldn't be impossible if you think about it. At least the surrounding area, not the actual tube.
I think this is my 2 cents, and I know this requires a lot of like programming for it, but I think a probably second pass on how the visual, like pretty much how you perceive and view things in Foxhole should really be going about, because the fact that you can't see the infantryman out, but yet you can see a tank, from a spot you wouldn't really see, is just you don't really. Yeah, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm trying to go in more of the vision sense of something like Project Zomboid. You get what I mean?
Yeah, I get
Where what you see when your character's looking forward is what all you perceive. Let's say you're looking at a tank at the half of your screen, but you're only seeing like what your character sees from the first half.
That would make the game super fucking stressful. Can you imagine the amount of times where a colonial will just like right behind you and just punch it to death because you just weren't looking behind you? But I get what you're saying, and it would be pretty cool.
Right. So now, without further ado,
the real reveal.
The real reveal.
I want to see their reactions.
Of the death stream.
What's that?
Look at it, Mr.
Oh, this fucking thing.
Why are you so disappointed? Like, people have been talking about this for a long, long time.
I'm not worried about this for the same reason everybody else is worried about it, though. You know what I mean?
Well, just like I'm gonna give you guys an update from Dev Branch from our guys. Apparently, this thing actually fires 2 times faster than a mortar. So basically, think of it as a land gunboat, basically.
With the capability of shrapnel shells as well.
Yeah.
Yum.
Yeah. Well, the one thing is it's not gonna be able to stack shells, but because of the mortar shells being so light, it's gonna be really easy to just like carry them on infantry, on the driver, on the spotter, on the gunner. Everybody's gonna be chipping in on those shells. And
I see this being used in the defense. See, everybody's worried about this thing flanking and taking out fobs and stuff like that. And yes, I'm sure that it will do that. That will be part of its MO. However, the thing that I am really worried about with this thing is its capability with shrapnel shells, because this thing will be able to rain those things down on the front line. And I'm not sure. Somebody said they're still bugs. Somebody said they're working now. I'm not sure what to believe because I haven't seen them used this war, to tell you the truth. But if they are working now and this thing has a double fire rate, all this thing needs to do is literally sit just behind the Foxhole line, and you're not going to be able to get anywhere near it because this thing's just going to rain down hell upon infantry. It's essentially a mobile mortar house, isn't it? Really.
kind of, but you don't have the aiming mechanic of the safe house.
Oh,
You
is it
need a
still
spotter.
spotted? Is it still spotted through
Still spotter,
binaries?
yeah.
Oh, well, that's not too bad.
It has a spotter port and everything.
Yeah, that's
Commander
not too bad.
hatch. So yeah, yeah. I think it's gonna be interesting. Maybe I
'Cause I was
definitely
gonna
look
say-
forward to stealing it. Sorry.
Yeah.
Of course, I was gonna say my opening thoughts when they first sorted out that like it was like, haha. Well, if the Colonials really want to invest time using that, they're gonna be at a massive disadvantage because you could just do the APC version and you could do it like way times as better. But the fact that I think it was kind of a good call, even though it always frustrates me where you have something that fires the same caliber ammunition, but for some reason, stat wise, it just does more damage. To me,
Right.
that always fucking grinds my gears. Because it's like, so I
Yep.
put the mortar tube in here, it does more damage. I have the one in my hand, but I do less damage. Like to me, it just makes absolutely no sense.
You know what I'm looking forward to with this thing? What this thing is going to be really good at is, like, say if you've got like a big infantry pushing the safe house or something like that, you roll one of these up behind your infantry formation, you could just cover the area in fucking smoke, like mortar smoke.
There's no more to
I just
score.
don't. I just
What,
don't.
it's been taken out?
It
Oh, is
was
it
never
in?
there.
It never in.
Never in, man. Only houses smoke.
If
that
they
was
were
too
to
good in my
make
head.
mortar smoke, like
Yeah,
it's
that
just
would be
something so
cool.
simple. It's like all artillery shells or anything that's indirect just needs like I would just say like 3 versions: standard, high explosive, and smoke.
Yeah.
Probably
don't-
you can
I just don't
You
think
go.
this changes much. I mean, I think as you mentioned, Dark, your first impression. I think your first impression is probably going to be about spot on. We've already got plenty of experience with mortar APCs, their strengths and their capabilities, and I think this is better than a mortar APC, but not by enough to change its role in what we understand the game to be. And we're still in, I think, a mortar meta, so to speak, where mortars are exceptionally strong. This will be strong, but we've already got experience with this.
I mean, this is all feeding into the same sort of tactics of what they're running the vehicles on with the Colonials. This thing is designed to snip at the flanks. You know what I mean? It's designed to snip at the flanks like a lot of the other Colonial vehicles. I mean, we've got an AT half track, and that thing. I mean, I know it's not like frontline worthy, but it's more frontline worthy than this. You know what I mean? This is designed for flanking, and what concerns me is that so many of the Colonial vehicles seem to be. I mean, I get that they're trying to go after a certain MO sort of thing, but the flanking MO, where you maybe a bit less vulnerable, a bit more vulnerable to sort of like direct combat, which is like direct line combat. You know what I mean? Where it's not artillery, you're not behind enemy lines, sort of thing. You're operating with very little armor, but with high mobility on the sides. You're always going to be caught out in Foxhole by a guy with an RPG or something like that. And especially where these things are going to shine, where they're going to be going on flanks and stuff like that, mines are going to be playing fucking war with these things. You know what I mean?
You remind me of something that's really important about this, and it's the same mistake that I think people have made in assessing the silver hand is how mobile is this compared to an APC, because that's where the difference.
and
a little bit of mobility is all the difference.
I think it's like a little bit more mobile compared to the APC.
Yeah, also Orbital is pointing out that the basic fires like an FA gun, so it's gonna get elevation bonuses up on hills and shit like that. It's gonna fire further away.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
That's another thing
It
that's
kind of
situational.
goes back to Dark. Why is the tube not whatever? It's just like weird. Why doesn't the
Yeah.
physics apply the same way to the same thing? Anyway, let's not dwell on that. Using too much logic is not particularly well. Yeah, I mean, I guess it has to have better mobility than APC, right? Like, I would expect it will be have.
I mean, the most disappointing thing about it is its looks, in my opinion. If I was a Colonial, I'd be thoroughly disappointed with the design of that thing because it looks like a pile of shite, in my opinion.
Well, the thing is because one thing we haven't seen, because the Colonials have been avoiding it, they made because the current half track we're all used to in Foxhole for the Colonials is their heavy half track. That is the design of their heavy armored half track, and that's one of their faction specials is they have a heavy half track and erase the mortar and replace it with the HMG. That's their light half track. That's one thing they keep avoiding and not teching is that it's kind of funny when you think about it, is because when they made a new half track for the Colonials, they're like, well, we already gave them their heavy version. We have to make a light, shitty version for it. And that's essentially what, this is like, it's their light, shitty version half track.
Right.
It just takes some while to get used to it, because this is supposed to be the standard one, and the normal one we're used to is the upgraded one.
Gents, I'm going to have to say goodbye here. I have to get off at this point.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, no worries.
Catch you
So
later,
we're about to end it anyways, right? Because we're
Yeah,
agreeing on this.
we've been going for a while, and I think it's time to get closer to those closing remarks here.
Is there anything you want to say for us, Cass, before you bounce?
No, this has been good. It's really good to reflect on. And I think that there's a lot of potential in what we've talked about for us to, move through some of the things that are crippling. And I'll use that word strongly. It's strongly crippling development of the game. So a lot of these things are resolvable, I think. And I think we're pretty close to having a good sense of them. So it's been good to talk about and think about and explore. I appreciate the opportunity to do so.
I do. Yeah. I just pretty much mirroring what Kaz said. There is opportunity. I'm saying overall, I would say the changes made through this patch are a positive thing overall. But there is definitely some glaring things that need to be addressed. You know what I mean? And I think one of those things is going to have to be somewhere down the line. It's going to have to be this game balancing issue and things
Thank
like
you for
that.
the
and how
follow,
they're
you
approaching that
non-essential
now.
scum.
I don't think it's a great idea, to tell you the truth, overall. However, it is allowing a lot more variation in vehicles and stuff like that. So I'm not going to complain too hard just at the moment. But I think somewhere along the line, it is going to present big issues for the game. And I'll just leave it there.
Dark?
I mean, I think we're all pretty much in a great square right now, because like we all
Thank
have
you
the
for the
same
follow, you
mindset of
non-essential scum.
these issues. They may be minor, but I feel like a lot of Foxhole's issues have always been minor, but they've been piling up so high, like it really affects like the enjoyment. Look at the statistics now, like population is going drastically down, and we're only we're at the end of the second war, and we're already returning back to the usual numbers.
Yeah. It's
And like
disappointing.
the fact, this is just my thing, just it frustrates me the most, is they're still adding global queues. I understand that one faction is already massively populating the other, but we can't finish it faster because you're preventing more people from not playing. And that's just like, what's the end goal? You want no one to play? If one side has 400 people and the other side has 20 or 200, you only want max only 200 on the other side? Like, do you want to exile those other 200 people out?
I think the main issue with what you're saying, Dark, I always felt it is. Remember in the past when you had the skirmishes, people that couldn't fit in could go in a skirmish, have some fun, go kill some, people on the other side, do some like warm up, right? Before they actually dropped in the actual war. And I think that kept people engaged, right? People wouldn't bother that much with like, well, yeah, I'm in queue, but I can go do stuff, right? I can go kill a few guys. I can go have some fun with a light vehicle. I can go, you know what I mean? Like, be entertained by while I wait to get in the big map thingy, right? Now without skirmishes, oh, I'm gonna go AFK, and hopefully in the next 2 hours, I'm gonna finally get inside this logi region, which is totally empty. And then once I get whatever I wanted to get from that logi region, I'm gonna drive down to wherever the conflict is, where I'm gonna wait in a queue again for another God knows how long before I actually get to play the game and get engaged in combat, right? That feels like a really, really bad way to promote people actually staying into the game, right? Because like there's always this discussion, and I had a lot of people where like you can't really say bad things about Foxhole because like look at the reviews and shit, people like it. Yeah, they like it for like about 30 to 40 hours maybe, but then they're like, yeah, do I want to start that game and do the weight simulation thing? No, I'm gonna probably go play CK3.
Stupid. Oh my god.
Yeah, that's just how I feel about it.
Fair
Well,
enough, dude. I'm inclined to agree with you. Just before we go, I will
wanna
say
fucking go already?
that if you guys have any questions for the next No Man's Land, don't hesitate to post them in the channel, and we will we'll have a look at them. Any talking points or any questions, just post them in the channel, guys. We'll take a look at them and pick some for the next No Man's Land.
Don't make me fucking close the fucking channel again. Please, just keep it to the Q&A questions, please.
Listen to
So
the
many
Mad Orc.
people just-
Yeah, just the questions, guys. Nothing else, or the channel will be closed. And next time, I am going to be booking a segment on law, and I'm going to have my bi-monthly rant on law. So you've got that to look forward to for next time, guys. As with always, from me and from everybody else, thank you for coming. And anybody want to say goodbye?
Well,
Make sure you fight out of your foxholes, boys. Fight like men.
fight like men, and don't throw those grenades too early. Don't
Cook them.
exactly. That's all you need
Get
to
a
do.
nice saute. It's
Nice.
flip.
Mhm.
But remember to throw them though. Don't keep them on you. And if you're an APC, for the love of God, fucking throw it.
Bye, guys.
Catch you later, guys.